Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel. I hope everyone is doing good today. So today I wanted to talk about something that I have learned in my 30 some odd years of time on this planet, and I want to hopefully deliver a message that I think is really important, not just for artists, but for everyone. I think that it's a all around life lesson that can apply to everyone, no matter what your walk of life is. Anyways, when I was younger, junior high, high school, I always wanted to be the very, very best at something. Now, that's coming from someone who kind of had a trophy parent. I had a parent who always pressured my sibling and I to be the best at things, who guilt tripped us for failures, for grades, for anything where we didn't perform superbly. I'm not like Jackson 5 levels of trophy parenting, but definitely there was a lot of guilt tripping anytime we didn't bring home a straight A report card or get first place at anything we did. So a little bit came from our parenting, and in my case, some of it was just the personal desire to be the best at things. I can't speak for my sibling. I don't really know what their feelings were about competitive scenes, but I personally was never the best at anything. I wasn't an athletic kid. I wasn't the best at sports. I wasn't the best at spelling. I wasn't the best at anything academic. I wasn't the best at art. I wasn't the best at anything I ever pursued. I was always kind of somebody who was on the back burner, and I always really hated that. And as I got older, I came to recognize my lack of ability in pretty much everything. I had a cousin who could really draw, and I always thought he was so amazing. He was an amazing artist, and I really kind of looked up to him a lot in my youth a little bit. My my sister could draw too. She was always a really good artist, and I admired her. She was always drawing wolves and elves, and I always thought it was really cool the way she would do that. And of course, I was younger than both of them. I couldn't draw as well as either of them, but athletically, I was never gifted. I was never fast. I was never strong. I was never agile. I can't catch a ball if you throw a ball at me. So I didn't excel in sports. I was a little stunted academically. I didn't learn how to read until I was in second or third grade. And just I always felt like I was an underachiever for a long time. Elementary school up until junior high. The one thing that I managed to excel at was chess, and my father taught me how to play chess, and I felt like I got pretty good at it because even though I could never beat my father at chess, I could go to school and beat everybody I played with. Between third and fourth grade, I would play chess with my classmates all the time, and I don't think I ever lost a game for that 2 year stretch. I remember I got beaten at chess by one classmate in fifth grade, and the entire class like had a party because I finally lost at chess to one of my classmates. But that's neither here nor there. I'm rambling. It felt really good to be like recognized as the best at something for a while though, but I got a little bit of a taste of it there is where I'm going with that. I got to have a taste of what it felt like to be recognized as being the best at something in my class. And that felt good. Fast forward to junior high and high school, and my parents moved us to a small town in the middle of nowhere, some place that no one's ever heard of, that no one cares about. Not even a point in telling you the name because there's nothing there to tell you about. But we moved to this small town, and I didn't really have a whole lot of anything to do besides play video games and draw, and I quickly became kind of an outcast, where I wasn't as much of an outcast in my original hometown, the place that I really consider my hometown. But in this small town, I absolutely was an outcast. Nobody there cared about anything except for getting drunk at parties and football. And as I've already stated, I'm not an athlete. I never was. And I have no enthusiasm for sports either. Like, sports just don't interest me. Football, basketball, hockey, soccer, whatever. It's not my thing. It doesn't interest me. It never did. So I very quickly kind of just became somebody who didn't really fit in very much in that environment. So I ended up being alone with my gaming consoles and my pencils and my sketchbook. And as I got into high school, I joined art club and I started being interested in being competitive with art because there were high school art shows that I could enter my artwork in, and I enjoyed the competition, and I wanted to win medals because I knew I could win medals with art. Other people were doing it, and I was like, this is something I'm good at. I want to win medals at it. I want to be competitive and prove that I'm better than other people. And from freshman through my senior year, I participated in art. I took art classes in high school all 4 years. I entered my artwork in competitions, and I won third place medals, honorable mentions, second place. I won them in all sorts of different mediums. I got a second place medal once in oil pastels. I got a second place medal in oil painting. I don't know how many third place medals. I got a second place medal in thrown pottery. I got another one in handcrafted ceramics. Like, I just earned second places out the ass all over the place. And to this day, I still have a chip on my shoulder about this to this day. And I'm in my 30s now. So, it's been 12 years ago. I never got a first place in any art show I ever participated in. Not once. And I went to college and took art classes in college, and I was salty about it when I went to college, and I'm still salty about it to this day. And I always had this hang up on wanting to be the best artist. I always wanted to be the best at something. I just ended up choosing art because that was my one thing that I thought I had some talent in. My one thing. I didn't really think I had talent at anything else, but I had art. I could draw. And I could paint a little bit too. It depended on what medium I was working with, of course. I could fiddle around with acrylics and I could play with oils to some degree, but I thought that I could become good at this. Now, the thing about going to big art shows, when your school starts to have like conference art shows where other schools are all competing against you and things like that, you see a lot of talent from other schools, even when you're just in high school, and it was humbling even then, but I still thought that I could compete with the people around me. It wasn't until later that I started to look at the internet and see other professional artists on the internet like Ross Draws or Proco or even just other people that don't have big platforms like them who are just amazingly good, that I started to realize, holy crap, I'm never going to be the best at art in the world or in any medium or in any subject matter. And some of that came as just this huge, colossal, letdown disappointment. Like, I'm salty that I never got a first place medal in high school, but whatever. The judges were just assholes. They just didn't like what I was doing, was kind of how I was always thinking. I even had an art teacher who was telling me it's because I like to do fantasy art, and the judges don't like fantasy, which I thought was lame. It's art. You should be able to do whatever you want. They should judge you on your technical skill, not on the subject that you choose to paint, but whatever. Apparently they're biased. My own art teacher told me as such. But that's when after high school, after college, when I started to look at art YouTubers, Instagram artists, people on DeviantArt, I discovered Sakami-chan on DeviantArt. It really started to just really dawn on me like a ton of bricks where I fall on this artistic hierarchy in the world, and that's what I finally realized in a not so happy revelation kind of way, that I'm really not that good. And boy, I used to think I was good. I mean, I knew I wasn't the best. I never got that first place medal. I never won first place at any art shows, so I knew I wasn't the best. And I knew that there were people out there better than me, but I still at least thought that I was good. And then in my early to mid 20s, like I said, I really had this revelation of, holy crap, in the grand scheme of things, what little bit of talent I had was meh at best. And I was like, compared to these other people, these professional artists, I really suck. I can't paint like Sakami-chan. I cannot paint like a lot of other artists out there. I cannot paint like Willop. I cannot paint like Frank Frazetta, whom I discovered fairly recently in the grand scheme of things, even though he's long gone at this point. And that was a little bit soul-crushing, and it was also a little bit humbling. Like, true humility came for me when I finally learned, and it wasn't just in art, it was in video games, it was in chess, it was in everything I ever did after I broadened my horizons and I saw just how much talent and skill is out there in this world, that I realized how much of a nobody I actually am and how talentless I could actually feel when I compared myself to it. Like, I might have been the best chess player in my little pod of 40 people in 5th grade, but that doesn't amount to a whole lot in this big world, you know? I started playing online and started losing a lot to people in other parts of the world, and it broadened my horizons a lot. Again, it made it clear to me that I wasn't as good as I thought I was. I was just good, and I was, number one out of a group of 40 people in a small town or in a small city. But in the grand scheme of things, I wasn't that good. I was just the best one in that little environment, and it's a big world. So, after feeling excessively humbled, much to my chagrin, I stopped worrying about being the best because I already knew I wasn't. And this isn't just something that I discovered and just accepted. I still think about this to this day because I still feel toxic about it from time to time. Because I have a competitive nature to me. It's part of just my personality. I get competitive with things from time to time. And I really don't like losing. But my mother used to tell me that there will always be somebody better than you. And I always hated hearing that. But it's true, there is always going to be someone better. But that's not the point. The point that I'm coming to is worrying about being the best is a waste of your time. And it's a waste of your energy. I stopped trying to act like I was better and thinking that I was better and wanting to be better than other people, and I just started wanting to get better. And that was when I actually started to improve the most, I think. I've grown a lot artistically in the last 5 years. I've gotten better in 5 years. I've seen more growth in myself in the last 5 years than I saw in my first 20 years of life. And a lot of that is because of the intentionality that came with it. After I really felt that I was really crappy and that I didn't want to be, and I started putting the effort in to actually get better, and started also learning the lesson that it's not just about practicing a lot, but it's about intentional improvement and seeking knowledge and pursuing learning material and not just spending hours behind a canvas, I started to improve. And improvement feels good. Improvement for its own sake is really satisfying. Improvement that you can look back on and see. And I'm still not where I want to be. I'm nowhere near as good as I want to be artistically, or at anything for that matter. But the lesson that I learned is that it's not about being the best. It's about the recognition that art, life, is a journey. And it's a journey that has no destination. My goal nowadays, and it's something I always try to remind myself of, my intent is to be the best version of me that I can possibly be. I want to be better today than I was yesterday. I want to be a better artist. I want to be a better photographer. I want to be a better writer. I want to be a better League of Legends player. Whatever it is I'm pursuing at that time, I want to improve upon. And you don't even have to improve by leaps and bounds every day. If you improve and learn just a little bit each day, you're making steady progress. And I've said it before, slow and steady wins the race. My high school art teacher said once that she hated the word graduation because, in her mind, saying that you graduated implies that you stop being a student. And that has the implication that you stop learning. And you don't. If you really want to pursue something and continue to get better at it, you're always going to be learning. You're always going to be a student. And you should never be too proud to want to learn, too proud to want to be a student. I mean, there's a League of Legends character who has a quote, "Master Yi, a true master is an eternal student." You will never stop learning. If you stop learning, you stop growing. And if you stop growing, you become stagnant. And to be honest, there's nothing at this point in life I am more afraid of than personal stagnation. I want to always be improving, and becoming stagnant and not learning is the bane of personal growth and improvement. So you should always pursue higher learning. You should always pursue improvement. You should always be on the lookout for that new technique or that new trick or that next epiphany. Because there's always another thing that you can learn. There's always another way that you can get better and be better than you were yesterday. And this doesn't just apply to art. This applies to everything in life. I truly believe that. You're never going to be the best at anything. You will never, ever, ever be the best at anything. I don't really think anymore that anyone ever will be the best at anything. I don't think it's possible. For starters, it implies that you're perfect, and perfection is not humanly possible. Human error is always going to be a factor in everything that we do. And you can always keep learning. There's always more to learn. And to pretend that there's not, to pretend that you've mastered a craft or mastered a trade or a sport to the extent that you're absolutely perfect it's arrogant, it's ludicrous, it's pretentious, it's not possible. You can always get better, and you should always want to get better. So, all that being said, you cannot be the best at anything. Because A, there's always going to be somebody better, and B, you can't achieve absolute perfection with anything. You'll never be above criticism. Your work is never going to be perfect. And C, you're always going to continue learning. You should want to continue learning. So, on a personal level, what this has done for me is it's changed my psychology. I can't exactly explain to you how toxic with myself I have been for years. How much self loathing, how much anger and resentment I have had with myself ever since I was a child for my lack of an ability to outperform my peers. I have always hated being outdone by people. I have always hated not being the best. I hate losing. I hate feeling like a loser. And whenever I feel that way, it is frustrating. It's embarrassing. Like, I literally didn't feel proud that I got a second place medal when I was in high school at art shows. I felt embarrassed that I didn't get first place. I felt humiliated. And I should have been happy I got second place, but I wasn't. I was just upset that it wasn't first. And I never was humble bragging, I never was doing it for attention. Even though it might have looked that way to my peers, they might have thought that I was just being dramatic, like that person who throws a fit that they gotta be on their report card, even though they're just being kind of stupid. I don't know, maybe they were being just as genuine as I was being. But I was genuinely upset that second place wasn't first. You know, it's like, there are no points for second best. If you're not first, you're last. So I didn't want no second place medal. That was garbage to me. It's not what I was there to get. And that festered with me for years. And I mean, to an extent, it still does. I already admitted earlier in this talk that I still have a chip on my shoulder to this day that I participated in 8 art shows when I was in high school. It was 2 art shows a year, the local art show and then the conference art show. I would win prizes at every single art show. I won medals and ribbons all 4 years of high school for my artwork. I never got first place, not once. And yeah, I'm still salty about that to this day. I haven't totally 100% let go of that. And I caused myself a lot of stress that I didn't need to cause myself. No one else was saying these things to me. People that didn't even like me that much in high school, like people I wouldn't call friends, just acquaintances, people that shit talked me all the time, would see my artwork. Even the people who didn't like me would acknowledge that I was a good artist. And there's, to an extent, that felt pretty good. The acknowledgement felt good. But I was never good enough for myself. I was always kicking myself. I was always criticizing myself and getting upset that I was never getting first place. And after I got out of college, after I started discovering people like Ross Dross, Frank Frazetta, Sakami-chan, Adam Duff, Ethan Becker, Proco, you name it, the list goes on, Willop, I started comparing myself to all of them, thinking, I wish I was as good as them. I wish I could paint like they do. I wish I could draw like they do. My favorite artist, Ayami Kajima, I wish I could paint like she does. And I can't. I am not as good as any of them. And for a long time, that really upset me for a few years, because it just drove me insane how much I would look at their work and just envy their work, envy their skill, and wish I could do what they do and achieve the aesthetics that they can achieve, and it drove me absolutely mad. Then I finally learned the lesson to stop comparing myself to other artists. And this is my most important piece of advice. This is my message. And if I have to reiterate this in every video I ever make, I will, because I feel like it is a life lesson that every artist needs to learn. And I think that they should learn it as early as possible, and that is, stop comparing yourself to other artists and stop envying their art. It is so bad for you psychologically to do. If you sit there and constantly look at the artwork of other people that have more experience than you, more practice, more education than you can crush your own soul by doing it. It takes so much time and so much effort to get as good as some of these other artists are. Especially if you're younger, it's not fair to compare yourself to them. These people have spent years becoming as good as they did. If you ever go and study Frank Frazetta had a long spell where he just didn't have the success that he achieved later in life. Later in his life, he became one of the most famous fantasy illustrators to ever live. Fantasy illustrators today, to this day, years after his death, are imitating his art style. And during his lifetime, people were trying to imitate his look and his technique. He has influenced fantasy illustration probably for until his name is forgotten, if it will ever be forgotten. He influenced the artists behind D&D. He influences the artists who work for Wizards of the Coast and make Magic the Gathering. That man is an incredible influence on fantasy illustration, hands down, period. And yet, he spent his first 25, 30 years of his life finding his niche. So if you're an artist in your late teens or in your 20s, you have nothing to worry about. You just haven't found your niche yet. You don't have to find it at the age of 20 years old. And you don't have to compare yourself to anybody who is currently a professional artist, either online or working in a studio or working in the game industry, anywhere, because they do this every day. They have had possibly formal education artistically, and they have had so much more time and practice than you. If you're an aspiring artist, you will get there. You just need time, and you need to put in the effort and the work to get better. Granted, as long as you're not disabled with some horrible, debilitating injury or illness holding you back, there's no reason why anybody who is of sound body and mind can't put in the effort and learn and get where they want to be, but you shouldn't compare yourself to other artists out there and get down on yourself because you can't perform as they do. It is one of the most toxic things that you can do to yourself. Instead, you should focus on yourself. You should focus on your personal growth. You should focus on improving. You should focus on getting better at what you're weak at. And as other people like Adam Duff are always saying, have some compassion for yourself. And I truly believe that this is the most important advice anybody can give you if you're an aspiring artist. And I do believe that it doesn't just apply to art. I believe it applies to sports. I believe it applies to life. Stop comparing yourself to others and just try to be the best version of yourself every day that you can possibly be. And that means being better today than you were yesterday. Don't stop being a student. Don't stop improving. Don't stop growing. Thank you for watching. I hope you all have a wonderful day. And click like and subscribe if you want more content like this in the future. Thank you.